And I'll make one final point. About half the members here are car dealers. And I will say my good friend Roger Williams out in the lobby, he tried to sell me a car, which didn't surprise me, but I just want to give props to Mike Kelly. He showed he was savvier because he tried to sell you a car, and you can afford a much nicer car than I can. So well done, Mike Roger. You just went to the wrong customer.
I was $100 cheaper.
Ted,
I'm easy to miss.
It's very rare that I would miss you. Go ahead, Ted.
Well, Mr. President, I want to congratulate you on behalf of everyone here for the leadership that you're showing. And this is a victory today for consumers. This is a victory for affordability. Your critics like to say the word affordability. Under Joe Biden and the Democrats, they put mandate after mandate after mandate on cars and trucks, and they drove the price up thousands and thousands of dollars. And with the actions you're taking today, and you put on top of that the one big beautiful bill, most of the senators here on the Senate Commerce Committee, and on the Commerce Committee, we worked together to zero out the CAFE standards. We wrote that into the law that the CAFE standards went to zero. What does that mean? It means you can now, as a consumer, buy the car you want. It also means people's lives will be safer, because what these regulations did is they forced cars to be more expensive and made of plastic instead of steel, because you had to make them lighter to comply with these standards, so you'd get in a wreck and people would die. The result of what you're doing, you're literally saving people's lives, and you're making it where families can afford to get a new car. These actions will drop the cost of cars and trucks thousands of dollars. That makes a real difference. And I'll make one final point. About half the members here are car dealers. And I will say my good friend Roger Williams out in the lobby, he tried to sell me a car, which didn't surprise me, but I just want to give props to Mike Kelly. He showed he was savvier because he tried to sell you a car, and you can afford a much nicer car than I can. So well done, Mike Roger. You just went to the wrong customer.
I was $100 cheaper.
The thing that Ted just said, it's true. Plastic instead of steel. Think of that. And people died because of that. The plastic was plastic in an auto accident, and it broke up, and people were shattered because of that crazy deal. But it's a really good point. Go ahead.
And Mr. President, I'll tell you, the Senate Commerce Committee on January 14th, we're going to have a hearing with all of the big three there and Tesla, and the entire hearing is going to focus on how your leadership has reduced the burdens on car makers. That's lowering costs, that's giving consumers more choices, and it's producing more jobs in America. And it's highlighting that's a real record of success.
Yeah, well, it's an honor. And, they were going by California. We had like 2 different countries, California and 15 that followed California, because you had 15 states follow California. And the rules from California were just like everything else. That's why people are leaving. That's why it's such a mess. There's a state with such unbelievable potential, but what they did with the car industry is incredible. And that was, the car companies didn't know what to do because they had 2 standards, and you can't build 2 different cars for the same country. And what we're doing today is very big. Would anybody like to say something? Would you like to say something, my friend?
I just want to say thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Brian,
Mr. President, thank
Brian.
you.
And we love you, Brian.
Oh, I love you too, Mr.
Okay,
President.
he's a good man.
Well, I appreciate that. I've always said you've tackled the three M's: mortgage, munchkins, and marriage. You've solidified all of those. I'll add motor vehicles to that now. My question, I got one about consumer confidence. We just came off one of the record high Black Friday, up 9.1%.
Record high, highest ever, biggest amount ever purchased in one day. Yeah.
Which I think counters this narrative of affordability, because apparently the Americans are spending money. So I want to see, how do you view that for a consumer confidence being so high going into Christmas and going into next year? And I do have one for the auto group after you.
Yeah, I just think that we have tremendous confidence in the country. One of the things in terms of confidence, if you go back a year and a half, it's amazing, we're like into 10 months already, but you go back a little bit before the election, because after November 5th, it started changing rapidly, even though we were running it until January 20th. But when you look back and you look at the enlistment of soldiers, people that wanted to join the military, the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard, it's like booming. It's all Space Force. But we had the worst recruitment in the history of our country. A year later, we have the greatest recruitment in the history. You can't even get in. Getting in is like getting into a top college that you couldn't get in. People want to be in the service now, and that includes the police, environment, and other things. You couldn't hire police. You couldn't hire anybody in the Army or the Navy. You couldn't get people in. And we now have gone from that to record recruitment. We're getting high quality people, amazing people, wanting to be in the military. They have spirit now, call it what you want, but that's part of it. But they have great spirit now. So it's a great thing. Go ahead, ask your second question.
Okay, my second question, I've got a lot of close family friends in the automotive business, own dealerships all across Southern California. They sent me a question to ask you. There's a thing called a mileage blocker that is installed on vehicles. It's a type of a computer chip which alters the actual mileage driven on the vehicle so that when you have a leased vehicle that's turned in, they're losing thousands of dollars. They've got to go chase down these manufacturers. What can we do to track down these manufacturers of this illegal computer chip that's really hurting the automotive industry?
Have you heard about this?
Yes, sir. They're getting built in China, and most of them are coming out of Great Britain, sir. They're being distributed through China, through distributors, selling them online through Great Britain. Yes, sir.
That's not so good. What do you think?
Look at that.
Bernie, do you know anything about that?
It works on older vehicles, and obviously, well, we got to do a better job of
Yeah,
making
I
sure
think
control at
it's
the border.
something, I've never heard of it. Very
I
good.
appreciate it.
We never heard of it. That's pretty good.
Mr. President, you released video of that first boat strike on September 2nd, but not the second video. Will you release video of that strike so that the American people can see for themselves what
I
happened?
don't know what they have, but whatever they have, we'd certainly release, no problem. We stopped, every boat we knock out, we save 25,000 American lives.
That's right.
And if you look at our numbers, the drugs coming in through sea are down 91%. I'm surprised there's 9%. You want to? I don't know who's doing the 9%, but it's down 91, and we're going to start very soon on land, and I'm sure you're thrilled to hear that.
So
Mr.
when
President, on
release the
Ukraine,
full-
Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner were there last night with Vladimir Putin. Can you give us an update about those talks? It sounds from what the Kremlin is saying that they're not going to compromise. Can you tell us what you've...
I don't know what the Kremlin's doing. I can tell you that they had a reasonably good meeting with President Putin. We're going to find out. It's a war that should have never been started. It's a war, if I were president, we had a rigged election. If I were president, that war would have never happened. It's a terrible thing. But I thought they had a very good meeting yesterday with President Putin. We'll see what happens. It's, when I was in this office and I talked about no cards, I said, you have no cards. That was the time to settle. I thought that would have been a much better time to settle. But they, in their wisdom, decided not to do that. They have a lot of things against them right now. But you have President Putin had a very good meeting yesterday with Jared Kushner and with Steve Witkoff. What comes out of that meeting, I can't tell you, because it does take two to tango. Ukraine, I think we have something pretty well worked out with them. They're very satisfied, considering. But the sad part is, if I were president, no war would have ever happened. They would have had 100% of their territory. Nothing would have happened. It's a very sad situation. So think of this. Last month, 27,000 soldiers. 27. That's like, you take a stadium, a football stadium, not an arena, and you cut it in half. 27,000 people died, mostly young soldiers, died last month, in 1 month. And that's the only reason I'm involved. We're not spending any money in the war.